Hello and welcome to my channel, Inch by Inch Art. Today I'm going to show you how I repainted a Games Workshop Lord of the Rings mini of Frodo. The first step is to plop them into some methylated spirits to try and get all this old paint off. I'm not sure who owned them before, but they did an interesting job painting, and I think it's time we freshen up his look. So I let them soak in the methylated spirits for about 24 hours, and now I'm just taking a Q-tip to clean off the thickest layers of paint. Now moving on to a wire brush, I'm just dipping it in the methylated spirits and then rubbing it around to get the paint out of all the little cracks and crevices. It'd be great to be able to see detail again. There was just so much paint globbed on and so many layers that you couldn't even see the detail this guy has. And I'm just using a foam makeup pad, trying to see if that'll help me rub some of the paint off. The methylated spirits really ate the foam, so I had to rely more on Q-tips and paper towels. Here's all of my fine brushes. These are all just from the dollar store. And I've moved on in my paints. I decided that I was going to try some real paint. These were featured in one of Squidmar Miniatures videos talking about what the best paint in the world was. It was in the top. I can't remember if it actually was the top or not, but the Vallejo acrylic model paints were among their top. So I figured I would stop using dollar store paints all of the time, and I'd invest a bit of money and give these a try. So rather than go into an in-depth description of every single one of these paints, I just sort of looked at pictures of Frodo, tried to think about what sort of outfit he's going to be wearing and what his skin would look like in his adventure, so like dirty and a little bit maybe bloody or flush, and I grabbed the colors that make the most sense. I was a bit concerned because, as you can see on the flat brown, there's some yellow in there, so I shook these up really well before I used them, but it didn't seem to make that go away in the brown, so I figured I would just try it out and see how it went. I didn't have any problems when I actually squeezed it out, so I don't know, maybe at some point there will be a bit of yellow in there. Not sure what happened. But anyway, so I'm using a wet palette here for the first time. Trying to get a little bit better about my miniature painting and my painting skills in general. What I really loved about this paint most of all was how the opacity was. It was just instantly, I put one coat on and I thought maybe I wouldn't have to do another coat. In the end, I did do 2 coats of each base coat, which is what I'm starting with. The big chunky blocky colors that I put down first. I start with the darkest generally, or darker colors, and then I move my way to lighter. I found that when I put this on, it actually had really great coverage. The paint went far. I didn't need more than maybe like a drip or 2. It dried fairly fast. It dried well. The color didn't change too much from what I was expecting between being wet and dry, and having to only put 2 coats on was a huge time saver, and I'm really glad that I invested in some better paints. And I'd just like to say I'm sorry if any of the video is hard to see. It's extremely difficult to film painting miniatures on this scale. I did mix some of my hues together on the wet palette. I found that this was just a fast and easy way to do it, and I wanted to make sure that each piece of leather or brown outfit at least looked a little bit different to the one next to it, so it wasn't all just one tone. And I put a bit of black in Frodo's hair to help with the contrast there as well. I'm just using my pointed cone-shaped silicone sculpting tool, and I put a tiny bit of white on the tip, and then I'm just pressing that into where the eyes are. And then I go back again and I put an even smaller amount of blue on the tip of the tool, and I'm just dotting that again, and that'll be the iris. And then I did it one more time with an even smaller amount of black for the pupil. And that's how I do my miniature eyes. Now I'm just painting the hilt of the sword black. And I decided that since he looks like he's in battle pose, I would make the sword itself, a dagger, blue, because Sting would most likely be lit up with enemies nearby. I'm edging it in white to try and make it look like it's glowing, and it has a little bit of the design anyway that the real Sting has embossed into it, so I use a darker blue inside of that to make that pattern kind of pop a little bit. And now I've gone into my metallic set and grabbed the gold color, and I'm doing the golden chain that goes to the ring that Frodo is definitely clutching in his hand. Now I'm just doing little gold buttons on his vest because I thought it would look nice. And now it's time to dirty him up a bit. So I'm doing a mostly dry brush of brown, and I'm just hitting spots that I thought he would have some scuffs or dirt. So I did his feet to sort of accentuate his furry feet and that they'd be dirty. I did the tips of his fingers and some areas on his cheeks. I also then went in with a red dry brush and I did his hands, feet, and cheeks again, figuring that he has scrapes and cuts and is haggard from his journey. And again, just going in with more brown dry brush, trying to make his white sleeves dirty, make sure that I get his hands good and dirty, and that looks much more realistic. Now I'm just sort of going over the whole thing to make sure that there's a good layer of dirt. This is quickly just showing you how I make a wash. I just put a drop or two of the black acrylic paint, same acrylic paint I've been using on the rest of the piece, and I add a bunch of water. Mix it around until it's the consistency that I want, and then I apply it to the miniature. Sometimes I'm really careful about how I apply it. It depends on the look I'm going for. With this one, I really wanted to boost the contrast, and I was comfortable with him looking dirty because of the situation that he's in. Here he is with his black wash, all dry. Now it's time to boost the contrast some more. So I'm doing a white dry brush here, just trying to highlight where the most light would likely be hitting him. So starting at the top and working my way down and really just focusing on the top and edges. Now I'm just going back in with a black wash to boost the contrast and make sure that the shadowed areas are getting darker. Then I decided to take a bit of a risk and add a lot of white dry brushing to his face and add a little bit of blue. The idea here being that if Sting's glowing, then surely the glow is touching areas of his face and hands and outfit. So I'm just trying to accentuate the fact that Sting is glowing. And now for a top coat. I usually don't do this because I haven't had a nice varnish before. Sometimes I'll do some sort of clear coat. Usually it's Mod Podge, but I finally decided, again, I was investing in some Vallejo paint, so might as well get some Vallejo satin varnish. and I'm just applying a thick coat onto the miniature. It looks very bluish right now, but when it dries clear. And here he is done. I tried to find my Linkolus miniature, the Legolas miniature that goes in the set, but that I painted to look more like Link, but I couldn't find him anywhere. I wanted to show the direct comparison between using the dollar store paints and using the nice Vallejo paints. Well, that's it from me. If you'd like to see more of me making my art, please like, follow, and subscribe.